Hello, everybody. I am Tiny Shiny with Man of Class today with the NECC Overwatch competition. It's Southwestern Michigan versus Huntington Esports in week 4 already. We're getting near halfway through the season so far, and in the Mideast Emergence Division and Man of Class, I'm really looking forward to seeing how these matches play out today.
Oh, I am too. And of course, we've got a couple of matches on the stream tonight. Not just the first one. There's going to be more than one coming up. Not just us talking. There'll be more people. Don't you worry. Variety is all we're here about. But yeah, we're going to be starting with Southwestern Michigan College versus Huntington Esports here in the the Mid East Emergence Division, as we call it, indeed. And both these teams have had a couple of games already. You know,
Mhm.
like you said, you're in week 4, so they're at least 5 to 6 games in. Currently, Southwestern is not doing amazing. Currently, a 1-4 record. Huntington on a 3-2. They're in a little bit of a better spot, but this is where that's got to start turning around for both those teams. You're halfway through, a little bit of a gauge of how everyone's doing. This is where those power levels really got to start either changing or really start building up.
Incredibly. I mean, now's the time, later than ever. I mean, you want to get your turnaround going. To be fair, Michigan did have a victory on the board. Actually, they did manage to beat the same team, both teams over that victory. So, however, we're looking to see a pretty close competition in terms of records. Huntington may be slightly favored in that sense, in terms of the teams that they played, the skill level of those respectively. And I mean, now we're going to get ready to look at those beginning rosters and how those are going to start out as we got to see our schedule and how these teams are really going to try to approach the game today.
Yeah, and talking about teams, obviously also talking about players. Like who are we actually going to be seeing playing today?
Mhm.
We actually had the name change come in from one of the players on Huntington, if I'm not mistaken. No,
Mhm.
that was the other one. It was a Southwestern. Sorry, on Michigan on the Michigan squad. So looking at those team rosters, starting with I don't even know what we're going to be starting with, but I know we're going to be getting them on screen when and anytime. Um, yeah, I'm going to be starting here with
Yeah.
Michigan, Southwestern Michigan College, Pac 5,
Mhm.
307, or just Pac 5 as we like to call them. Nines, that one kid, Taro, because Plague has gone through a little bit of a name change, and Crusher Z kind of coming in here. Nice diverse roster. We also always like to look a little bit like what's their academic background. In this situation, you
Mhm.
can see there's absolutely no correlation between them. So they truly have this sort of society set up there in Michigan that is more broader than just this one department thought it would also be cool to have an esports team and they just made all the students from that particular studies. No, it's truly an all-around program, and it's always good to see.
And that's the beauty of esports. It's not
Yeah.
bound to one major or the other, your interest. Everybody has a place in the online gaming world. And it's really beautiful to see that Michigan has been able to set up that type of environment for themselves as well. And actually, a bunch of younger students as well, freshmen and sophomores primarily, in this roster. And once you start to go look at Huntington, we might see a bit of a change compared to the backgrounds of the players.
Huntington always also known as the director squad. A lot of film studies in this one, but we also got some computer science and psychology here. So it's going to be Prozac, Ginger, Trashbode, X, Michael, and Doxic starting out on the roster today. And this roster has been doing well so far. I mean, like we said,
Hmm?
3-2 record. The teams that both of these squads tonight played were defeated in more. Or even defeated in general more convincingly by Huntington if you look at the map score. So they are coming in today as the favorite, but of course, the game keeps changing because Overwatch 2, we keep discovering new things. For clarity, we are not on the same patch that the Overwatch League is currently playing on. So if you were expecting a lot of the same banana rush, as we've been calling it, probably not going to happen. But some teams like to be ahead of things, so we could also always be surprised.
Yep. I mean, we might see a bit of everything, and that's the fun part about this competition is that there's no strict boundary. Teams are more free to experiment and figure out what works best for them. It's
Yeah.
always yes, there's always one thing that might be slightly better to play as the other, but there's also the idea of choosing what you're most comfortable with, and we're going to see how that goes out today. It looks like Huntington actually they're on a 3-win streak. The only games that they've lost were the very first 2 weeks, so maybe it was just a bit of a learning curve for them taking that time and really developing their team and their synergy as well to bring them to this nice winning streak. And they're looking to extend it here today as well.
Yeah, and the first win can sometimes give you a taste of that victory, give you a taste of that coherence that you can find within the team. And if they have indeed found it, that could be a very dangerous thing to fight against for Huntington. But yeah, we have got, of course, got the teams lined up. We got the map set ready. It's almost time to
Mhm.
go back into that game. Busan is going to be our first map as usual. We're going to go through the control, hybrid, escort, push, and then potentially back to control maps. Situation of things. First of three match. Nothing odd, nothing strange. It's just some good games of Overwatch between these two squads. And with Busan as a first battleground, at least we can already rule out the fact that May is going to be played because, well,
Mhm.
she can't be played right now. She's not in the game. There were some concerns over her ability to put people inside of walls, which can definitely be a problem. So let's not have her on the battlefield today, which is unfortunate because if I talk about Busan, I like myself some May play on the Mega Base.
Mhm. May will thrive on mecha base specifically. So I think there's a lot of teams that will be kind of devastated to hear that news, but at the same time will be willing to kind of move forwards and try a new approach, if you will. Mecha base specifically, as we know, has been more prominent for the close range. Busan in general, we're thinking about the different map types that you have and the wide variety that you can even see in terms of the compositions, depending on the map, the open space that you have. But mecha base, we're often going to see that more brawly style coming out.
Yeah, Southwestern Michigan College will be on the left in the blue. Huntington comes out in the red on the right side on this particular map. It might switch to the coming map depending on which side the push go on. Of course, control and attack under neutral. Not going to worry about which side to start on. Thank you in chat watching. It's gonna be great.
Yep, of course. It's going to be amazing. And we're already seeing these rosters beginning to come out. Zarya, the prominent tank pick, which, knowing her initial strength when Overwatch 2 came out, both in the Overwatch League and just your average everyday comp games, Zarya, very, very good choice. I do like to see a near match. The only difference right now is really going to be those support compositions. The Zarya Reaper going to be the primary essence of the composition moving forwards, and already having to battle on this high ground. It's going to be about that Genji wanting to rotate around the back, kind of be more of a nuisance as we're seeing them play on this high point. Pack 5 as well wants to try to find a way in. Needs to watch these bubbles when they're coming out and using them to their advantage. And that's the rush forward from Pro Zach. Managed to take down Crushers, but pays for it with their own life. Ginger in as well, but falling low, forced to retreat a little bit further back to get healed up before they're forced to re-engage. But being down a damage player, Huntington knows that they are on the back foot. Heading out to this fight, point control has been unlocked if players wish to do so, and it is Huntington on the point. And they will be taking the first capture.
It's gonna be kind of missed a little bit of that fight. There's some tech problems, but here we go. The rest does actually come off on Nines. Taro does play for that with their lives. Trash Bow, very charged Zarya, making sure they get the damage down. And with the point control, they're going to try and establish the control. Well, at least the high ground has been given up. As I say, that Ginger really goes through Crushers.
Yeah, Ginger is really getting in there, which is impressive how well they're able to play with this Genji and just casually throws up a triple kill on the board. And that's just going to be another fight won quickly for Huntington.
Huntington, I mean, proving they're sort of, we thought they were coming in here as the favorite. Certainly they're proving that right now. It's still early to really call it, but for now we can at least we have comfort in the knowledge that we were somewhat right to start off with. Also, they're starting to come online a little bit for Southwestern, but they need to do a little bit more. This is obviously the one we're all looking for, that railgun shot.
All about lining up those shots. Sojourn, her ultimate can be the best in the game, or it can be the worst. All depends. You're actually able to land those attacks. Not like a Death Blossom, where you have to worry about that. But actually, speaking of Death Blossom, there it is, Pro Zach. Up with one, courtesy of that ultimate. Takes on the Sojourn with them, and they did lose the point a bit there. But Huntington able to come back in, knowing when to prioritize that objective.
Yeah, you're definitely okay losing a couple percent in order to get that back going back up on your own side quicker. The Reaper has been a hero that we've been looking at a lot currently. It's because of the DPS passive boost, you get this extra attack speed that Reaper really usually is like trouble with. Like, oh, I don't reload as fast, I don't, move as fast, all that stuff. And now he doesn't have to worry about it. And as Pack 5 goes in with the Reaper ult of their own, they get denied by the Immortality Field and the headshots from Ginger.
That ultimate, probably one of the bigger ones you could have had, knowing that you had the Diva, the Matrix there, to kind of back you up. And unfortunately, that was the thing, is that one kid actually making a couple swaps and to the Diva, which is kind of interesting considering with the composition they're playing to and the low time that they have to get themselves onto the objective here.
I think that was kind of the point, right? So on without any cooldowns, without any charge, if you're not able to get much out of your bubbles, it's a good choice to swap over to a different tank because Zarya doesn't really do that much if her bubbles don't get value. That kid with the Matrix will be able to defend her DPS players and her supports a lot better, but it might not be enough. And currently with a 99%, they need to flip this point right now, otherwise this map will be over.
You're looking to do it, but Huntington, they have this Graviton Surge and the Dragon Blade in their back pocket, just sitting there, just chilling. Haven't even needed to use it, but actually will be a soul grab onto the Ash just to secure that elimination. And now they're looking pretty far up. That one kid's mech getting absolutely shredded by a full charge Zarya beam, and that right there has been round number 1 going to Huntington.
Round 1 over, done and dusted with. Huntington not really looking to break a sweat just yet. Mecha Base is one of those maps where once you win that first point, it can be very hard to get through the choke, especially on that high ground, which is where Southwestern kept on trying to push through. I would have liked to see them maybe try a different angle of approach. Don't go all to the stairs every single time, because whereas that high ground is very important to have or helpful to have, it's not everything, especially if you can make use of the walls that keep coming up all the time around the objective. And now that we're going to go to a map that's a little bit more open, it has a little bit less of a strong chokehold on it for a defending team. I'm curious to see what Southwestern is going to be able to pull out on this one.
It looks like they're going to take on the full mirror match, which I do admire, and then taking this approach, maybe to give them that extra speed and the, at least in the support line, I feel like that's going to be really valuable. But the early rotation to point, it's actually pretty warranted because the push around the side from Huntington as well, the speed wasn't able to get them there in time, especially with an immortality field forced out really early from Huntington. That one kid is able to move up really far. You need to use these bubbles a bit more aggressively, but you need to be cautious of that Zach getting into your backline, just hunting down this Baptiste. And falling down early Taro, unable to do much. Healing, looking low. Crusher's falling down, and Huntington looking to take the first object cap once again.
The coordination around this Reaper is very important for Huntington's success at the moment. The way that either Trash Boat is able to bubble them, the way that they're speeding them around, the way that they're sort of distracting the rest of the team and then coordinating a target for the Reaper to go on, it's very impressive and it's good to see. You see the pressure on Southwestern is just very hard to deal with at the moment. And they're not able to reply in kind. If you look at the ultimate differences between the Reapers, it's not gigantic. The gap isn't really there yet. But over the course of the game, that might change.
Especially if Pack 5 just immediately tries to go in, but unable to get that Wraith form off in time. Trashboat taking them down immediately, and rushing forward to clean up these kills is incredibly important as you're able to get these staggers out, but you need to be careful not to overstep your bounds.
Yeah. Of course, you know, we're talking about the Reaper of the DPS a little bit. You can also look at what's happening with the speed boost, because that's very integral, of course, to the mobility of both the Zarya and the Reaper primarily. The way that they're able to move around the map is very dependent on how that Lucio is going to be able to use the speed boost, and also really tempos their engages and disengages.
Tempo and who's able to control it during that time. Like all eyes right now, they're going to be on 9s. You're going to be trying to set this one up, gets caught in a grab! Let's take down with them. Look for that trade later on, but Pro Zach just says, nah, this is ours. Pulls out the Death Blossom, and another team kill coming on through.
Looks like we're going to be seeing potentially a swap come out on that side. Yeah, 9's going over to the Soldier. I mean, it's understandable. If you want to fight from range a little bit more than you want with the Genji, then this could be a very good answer, especially also in the backline against that Reaper. Just throw a Helix Rocket in his face. Doesn't really like to have that. And it's just constant poke, which the Genji provides a little bit less of in accuracy.
Ideally, you're looking for that Genji to kind of stay alive. You need to avoid that Zarya and need to harass these characters that don't have the mobility or the ability to get Genji down much sooner. But now the point needs to be contested, 96% and counting. Everyone grabbed off and able to get the actual flip, but that's okay because you have the point control as well, but you don't have that numbers advantage that you're looking for as Huntington come on through. After surviving through that grab, simply not enough damage to shut them down, and map number 1 is going their way.
Map number 1 to Huntington. Didn't really seem to like they had a lot of trouble with this, and you can definitely tell that when you just go to this mirror matchup, Huntington just seems to have their number. But Michigan is not completely out of it just yet. We've always talked about Control being this sort of outlier. Yeah, it gets a good warm-up. You get some skill indication sometimes in terms of team fights. But a lot of the time, it very becomes this sort of rock, paper, scissors type of deal where one team is just better. And it's sometimes hard to like, really come back into that. So it's definitely not one of those where we're already going to count Michigan out completely. because Huntington just had this one, but there's still at least 2 more maps to go. And of course, we are going to go to a hybrid map next, which can't be chosen by the teams because we have the predetermined map selection. In this situation, it's going to be King's Row, everyone's favorite hybrid map.
But let's be completely honest here. Even if it wasn't up to us to decide the maps, the teams
Yeah,
probably would have gone here
yeah.
anyways.
Yeah. It's been a
So,
conversation though. Like in Overwatch 2,
mhm,
we got the new heroes. You can't just play Ryan Zarya anymore over there.
mhm.
The map might be the same, but there are still a lot of speed changes and other things that are different. And other than the familiarity, I mean, we also have the new hybrid map. We have Paraiso in now, which is a really cool map. People really seem to like it. I like it too. And it brings this very different playstyle to it. So there are teams that actually prefer some other maps now, and it's coming through a little bit more. But of course, like you said, we can't really pick them here. Teams don't pick them. We sort of select them way ahead of time before the season even starts. So yeah, this just happens to be the game in which Kings Row is going to be played, and you get to enjoy it with us.
Mhm. Like you said, even if it's old map, old kind of story that we're always looking to solve, it's also a new pace, new style. It's
Hmm.
not two tanks anymore. And I
Nope.
would be kind of surprised if we see. Honestly, I'm expecting to see the Zarya once again,
Yeah.
especially from Huntington. Trash Boat looked really solid on that. We of course can't. There's a lot of variety that we can see on Kings Row. It is one of those more flexible map selections. However, it just depends on playing to your strengths and what works. And honestly, looking at this from another perspective, Southwestern Michigan might find this to be a very comfortable spot to try to change the pace of their game.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's really uncomfortable in Kings Row, and I think that it might actually be more to Michigan's detriment than their help. If you can
Hmm.
select one of those sort of off-map picks that's really good for your team, but other teams kind of struggle or are not as familiar with, Kings Row is really that map that no one really minds. It's just kind of there, and everyone's cool with it. So yeah, I would have, it would have been maybe better for them if you had something like Blizzard World or Paraiso or even Hollywood just on there because it's just sort of off balance. That being said, you could also go off balance with a couple of heroes. We see a lot of Widowmaker openers on attack here. If you really want to play something against the Zarya, I would usually suggest try and do something with a Winston. The problem there is that King's Row is not the best Winston map, so going to
Hmm.
be a bit of problematic here. So yeah, a lot of options kind of being sort of taken away from Michigan here. But I do hope they have a good Widowmaker opener because that would be really awesome.
It would be really nice to see. We love to see the Widowmakers just come out and hit shots. I mean, maybe it's not the most interesting to cast, but you can feel the tension, you feel the energy, and you're like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, are they going to hit that shot? And you see them line it up, and it's very exciting to see. And having that come out to be their win condition would be amazing for either one of these teams. Have that just kind of chilling, pulled out the secret ace that they might have been holding up their
Yeah.
sleeve, and
And Michigan is trying to adjust anyways. They're shuffling some things around their team. We're not gonna have any substitutes, but we're gonna have Pack Five move over to the tank role, and that one kid is now gonna be on the DPS. So that might be because there's like some hero preferences, some DPS preferences that they want to do. And currently on defense is where they're setting up. They're coming out with the Reinhardt. Now, I was thinking in my head, like maybe one of these teams might try it, or both of them might try it, just for the sheer fact that Reinhardt still does really work well in King's Row because of the close quarters. But
Mhm.
it's always a risk. And that one kid on the Junkrat right now, like I am very excited to see this because again, they're trying to throw a curveball here. They're trying to do something that they might be more comfortable with, and that Huntington may actually need to adapt to.
This is definitely a curveball. It would totally fit under that vocabulary word right there. And playing into this with a Winston, it's going to be kind of tricky. But that's a huge bionade actually into the back of the room, and Huntington don't even want to go near that hotel. And who can blame them? You're going to want to wrap around behind, take a less predictable angle to get there. But Trash Boat's so low, barely able to leap away in time. And now Carrot and the rest of their team is forced out into the middle of the space and forced to play the objective. And Huntington are going to take another crack with this composition here.
Not just a curve ball, it's a curve grenade. You see the high ground being taken here by Trashbot on the Winston. They're trying to surround them in this hotel. That's exactly where the Junkrat and the Reinhardt like to play. Even the Reaper, just get them up close. They're going to back off a little bit to not be completely surrounded, and Archway is going to be their friend to back up to if they need to. No cleanse on that Reinhardt because no Kiriko, and there's the jump on the Baptiste.
It's truly amazing positioning from the defenders right now in the way that they're set up. They know where their composition is going to find strength, and they're playing to that incredibly well. That one kid, however, getting caught out by another random Hanzo shot. Prozac ending up with two. The opening that their team was looking for. Landing these shots on the Hanzo does an insane amount of damage, but Nine's coming back in, alive and healthy. Will be keeping your team up on the defense.
And that's where that Lucio comes in. Just keeps them safe behind that Reinhardt shield. Nines is able to walk in, and the speed boost just overwhelming these attackers that were trying to take position of the point. And now you see it. The change has to come through. Trash boat on the Reinhardt. Keeps the 30% ult charge, of course. That's a change that's currently in the game. You keep that ult charge, and a nice dragon through the hotel.
Huge dragon strike. It actually forced out that immortality field, but that one kid tried to walk away from it, and probably not the best time in order to prevent that damage from coming through. Nines finds the Kiriko in the back, heading to the point, looking for the Hanzo, has the Death Blossom in hand. Turning this one around for their team. Like you said, that Lucio coming in clutch, choosing their moments to re-engage incredibly wisely.
Very nicely done. And they keep losing maybe like 1 or 2 members, but the nature of their comp is by taking them out, unless you do it with a Widowmaker, like you're far away, you're always going to sort of trade heroes. And normally that's an attacker advantage, but not when the numbers get fewer. That's where Reaper thrives. Less enemies to fight against is exactly what he wants.
You don't want to take them multiple at a time. You want to take those 1v1s, ideally. Trash Boat has this Earth Shatter, same one from Pack 5 whenever they opt to use it. The Sound Barrier, giving them that extra boost forward, not willing to drop the shield to swing the hammer, afraid of that Riptire, which actually Prozac managed to snipe out of the sky. Meanwhile, Trash Boat has fallen, but Nines again with the re-engage. Once the resources have been fought out, they know that they have the time, they have the numbers, and therefore the advantage to continue through, and only a minute remaining for Southwestern to come on in, for Southwestern to come on in with a win condition.
Yeah, this entire map so far, this defense has been the symphony of the supports. The Crushers and Taro have been doing so well keeping Pack 5 alive. They're balancing their health bar. He went down to 17 HP over there. 17. That's ridiculous for a Reinhardt to want to shatter into.
That's just trusting your supports right away. I mean, trust that one too, because there's the combo you're looking for. Holy Ginger with the 5K. Courtesy that Earth Shatter and the Nano Boost, and I mean, you needed the ult dump, but whew.
Yeah. And it's kind of it, you know, right there. It's going to be able to take that one out. I mean, it is almost an overtime. It took almost 4 minutes to take that first point. But you're still going to be happy when you're Michigan. It just, you know, it's always better to get a full hold. Obviously, it is. But this is still something you can count as a victory on King's Row.
Exactly. You're coming up with these major plays, and when you're on objectives like that, all you need is realistically a whole team wipe to get them through, and you're all
Plus, look at what Huntington had to use to get that first objective. They only really have the dragon left. Now they can open up a fight a bit in these sort of tight alleyways, but with the defensive ultimates that are currently online, I don't think they're going to have trouble to hold at least 2 fights.
So we're going to try to hold this choke as long as you can. Reinhardt's going to absolutely thrive here, and so does Nice. Once more, comes up with a double kill. Looking for another one with a Zarya, but it's incredibly low, so Pack 5, so you know what, I'm going to step in, I'll help you out. Just Trash Boat against the wall.
They were pressing that shift button for the Wraith form. You saw it happen. It's like 1, 2, almost got it back. I love seeing the weapon charms as well. There's a little health back on the Hanzo bow. Like it's just dangling there, but it's there. I love to see it. You know, you can't put the skins on, but at least you can do that.
Yep, it's another fun thing to look at. These players can fight back against the rules of customization in competitive Overwatch games.
Little personalization right there. Oh, the dragon comes through.
Ooh. Dragon, it only really cuts off the Reaper and the Junkrat, which doesn't do too much. However, Terra, it's close, and the support's now down. That's the opening that you wanted to find. Ideally, with the immortality field already been utilized, it's looking pretty good for Huntington to move forwards, and really well played off that Dragon Strike as well.
See, and this is one of those moments where you can start criticizing Michigan a little bit, because they've had a couple of these ultimates for at least 2 or 3 fights, and at some point you got to use them, because even if they don't get value, just by using more of them, you get your tempo up, you get your engages up, you get your aggression up, and it sort of pushes back or puts pressure on Huntington that otherwise wouldn't be there. Even if you don't kill anyone with a Riptire, they're still having to run away from it or deal with it or look at it in any way, shape, or form. So it's always useful to use more of them than save one for like the 4K. Even though 4K is awesome, of course.
4Ks, of course, are absolutely amazing to look at. And actually, they're looking to do that off the back of their Earth Shatter, Sound Barrier, Toxic, perfectly timed, and just like that, the advantage that you had early on has been destroyed, and Southwestern Michigan are heading back to spawns with still a couple of ultimates in their bank, and Hunting Esports have played this incredibly well, and only using what's been absolutely necessary to win these engagements.
Yeah, and not having to use a lot, being able to go with 3 ultimates into that last checkpoint, keeping that momentum up is a really good thing. Obviously, we are gonna look at that one kid still with the Riptire ready. Do want to see that come through in this fight, honestly. Otherwise, it's just gonna be there for too long. And the neutral game from Junkrat hasn't been that strong so far. Coming through the air does get at least the mortality field out of the way. It's something. It's at least a little bit of something.
Oh. It's definitely something. We take the immortality field. It's a long, like, nearly 30-second cooldown. Take that out. There's already something that later on. What you're gonna want. And that's why you're gonna use the Dragon Strike to clear that rest of that space. These players are unforced, cannot move backwards anymore. They're forced with their backs against the wall. Playing the Junkrat, actually, really 3/4 and finds 2 off of it. Now you have an Ant Matrix in your possession. That's a great place to be with this specific hero, able to one-tap the squishies. Wanted to get in, but don't even need it at that time. It's just zoning ult.
It's arrived. The Bastion pick.
Oh,
the
no.
0.3 King's Row Bastion. It is the play that we always are waiting for. Now, they do have a couple of ultimates coming against them, specifically the Amplification Matrix and the Overclock. But you know who can't get one-shot by a railgun? It's Bastion. Bastion is really hard to kill, especially in his tank form.
Oh yeah, you have that extra health, you're not taking nearly as much damage as well, and you can just spray. You can see right there, Trashbot had to use the entirety of their defense matrix just to negate that damage from that Bastion in the tank form. Even have the Ant Matrix at their hands, but wisely kited, moving away the rest of the building, give them the space that they require, but now is the time for the, oh, that was so close. That sound barrier almost was deleted. Ginger. Overclock moving into the back, wanting to back out. Not risking this, but 9 says, that's enough. We're calling in the artillery strikes. They might not have found any eliminations off of that damage specifically, but it sure did give their team something. Rozak is not giving up just yet. Everything is coming up from Huntington. They see that it's winnable, and they know it has to be, because overtime has since begun. Last
Another
push.
tire that doesn't find anything. They couldn't move past the payload. There was just too much pressure on them to really do anything there. The Overclock, yeah, it didn't find much from Ginger, but it didn't have to. They just pushed him away. Dragon Strike, Self-Destruct, all these survival tools, face making. It's been so valuable for the ultimates they've been able to save. Now the Amplification Matrix out from Taro. Can she enable her team for this?
Yep, the answer is definitely yes.
Yeah.
That's just Junkrat damage going through the Matrix. You see,
It
wasn't even that the Junk was through the Matrix. Those players were zoned out to the other side of the cart where he was just sitting and waiting for them to come through.
Yeah, it is looking good for Michigan. Like in general, this has been a fairly good defense. The cart got a little further than you might have wanted for those double like overtime pushes on point A and B. Like maybe you could have stopped it there sooner, especially with the ultimates that they did have available. But overall, I mean, they didn't complete the map. You had a lot of good fights on defense, and you made some swaps that definitely worked out. So Michigan is showing their versatility, showing that they're thinking about the game actively and adapting to the situation. And it's Huntington that's kind of sort of, they've mostly just been sort of WM1ing, trying to like force the issue in the exact same way with the exact same heroes the entire time. Whether that will come back to bite them is of course a question. Maybe there's just too big of a teamwork gap between these teams that it might not matter. But we'll see. We'll see what comes up with this, because I am very curious to see whether Huntington can have as effective of a defense. They're going to try with their Junkrat of their own. Ginger is going to be on it. But this doesn't seem to be like their bread and butter sort of defense that they would normally set up. So they are being forced into this different play style by Michigan at the moment. And playing your own game is always a very strong move on the side for Michigan is in that position now. So looking forward to this attack.
Yeah, see, the Southwestern Michigan, they're coming out with the try to get a bit more coordinated with this. Huntington Esports, they're relying a lot more on that sheer damage output that they have. The spam damage, wanting to rotate around those choke, and it's very nice rotation, but that bio nade was even better. You have the Immortality Field 2-stack on top of it, but it's barely even needed. Nines might have found 2, but your Baptiste has got the rest covered.
They did actually get some value out of that. They pushed Huntington in a very odd position because they've got quicker respawns, and because they're using the speed boost effectively and spawning as a team, they can make a very strong aggressive push onto this, and it's going to be hard to hold for Huntington because they've got no ultimates ready just yet. Ginger and Prozac are the closest as DPS.
With how fast that fight actually unfolded, I'm not even surprised. Everyone just seemed to fall over at exactly the same time. Only 30 seconds, but Ginger finding the better advantage of running that. Hanzo the defense, but playing into a Reaper is rather scary as that specific hero, unless you're able to land that headshot. Often a very nice challenge to have is trying to replay from a Reaper as well. Mythical. Able to reset themselves to that high ground and wants to play up there where it's nice and safe and happy, but that one kid is looking to take away their safe zone and eventually forced off, and we'll be taking that first point away.
Yeah, high ground. How about I put some mine on that ground? That's exactly what that one kid did over there. Still a lot of good use of the high ground from Huntington. Just purely the Hanzo play from Prozac there. That flank almost won them another defense just by purely no one looking at them for a little bit. But eventually Huntington does fall over. They didn't quite have the same defensive hold of the setup that they could have because of that chaotic fight early on. And Michigan having a lot more time in the bank now. Their momentum is starting to build. They only just have a couple of ultimates behind, but they're really close to getting them.
This Graviton Surge with the Dragon Strike, always a classic combo. No matter what you have, however, you have both the Immortality Field and Sound Barrier to try to counter that out. Bionade taking a bit of time as well. You're wanting to use the Sound Barrier pretty early, which you want to engage, you want to take the space you can while you have it, but so much coming out from both sides right now. You need to come out. You need to be the winner. It's an incredible fight. Valuable who is able to actually pull out on top, and Crushers trying to 2v1 with Azaria. Does not have the health in their advantage. Might have been stuck in a trap, but support's there to back him up. It's just about holding the space as long as they can, hoping that Reinhardt can return to them soon.
They got more numbers coming back earlier on the attack here, so they'll be able to push back a little bit further. But now it's the ultimate bank for Huntington that's completely overwhelming. As long as that tire gets nothing, they might have a chance.
It's been the story before. They've been able to take it down, but taking the right arm down is just as they were about to hit that Earth Shatter. The damage follow-up isn't there. That ultimate finding little to no value in that scenario as the defense is able to push on up and hold on tight.
I think that Shatter, because it still hit a couple, it actually made Huntington use one or two more ultimates than they maybe otherwise would have. Both support ultimates and the tire. They will only have the Graviton. They might be holding on the Dragon for it. But just with that rip tire from that one kid, they could just open this up. They just haven't really found that much value so far. They need to bait out this Immortality Field from X Michael. Otherwise, there is almost no way this tire is going to find anything.
You're going to ideally want to do that with Zarya. Track 5 is actually already switched over. Pulse have been expended. Moving that around, but you don't even have to worry about that anymore as Terra actually falling down that one kid. As the Riptire finds the Hanzo, completing its journey all the way through.
Oh, so low.
Yeah, that's exactly the value that you needed to find it, but you're falling so low as Trash Boat can engage. Didn't want to use the grab there, and it's understandable. You want to hold on to that for the next point. This one's already been set and done.
Yeah, they're speeding through this map, and with 4 minutes, you definitely don't need to be worried about not being able to build up enough ultimates. If I am Southwestern Michigan here, I do a couple of drive pushes, make Huntington use their ultimates and go in with 5 ultimates, just press Q it all at the same time. And if that doesn't work out, you'll still have 2 minutes left. So they can go for the Hail Mary play without even being a Hail Mary. And that's such a luxury to have on this map.
Incredibly, Kingsville third point, often a point where a lot of teams can get stuck up, which we actually did see with Huntington in Esports on their attack. Repton Surge has covered by both Immort Bubbles and a Sound Barrier, and nobody's going down through that one, but Nines chooses this exact moment to unleash the Dragon Blade, knows that the Repton Surge isn't there to stop them, and just like that, it's a 5v3. The point is in sight, Golden Box of Victory right there, you can nearly taste it. Wearing these players off, you lost Terret, but that is not nearly enough. 3 players still able to push this point all the way to its completion. Southwestern Michigan still looking to find another map.
And as all of our people in esports left to say, we got a series on our hands, people. It's a 1-1. Michigan and Huntington drawing up the series here on Kings Row. You see Prozac here. This was that flank. Just on the first point, the first attack, and you can see this goes back and forth. He did the same flank on the second try. The problem is they didn't have the same amount of distraction on the point of the defense in order to hold that again. And that was, I don't know if that was Michigan's actual strategy. The strategy just go in, take as many with you as you can, and then just go in again because you got the speed boost and they don't. It's a fairly good thing. I mean, we've seen this before with dive strategies as well, where they just keep on jumping, and eventually it's war of attrition that they win because their respawns and their mobility is higher. It worked out a bit quicker than that does sometimes, but it definitely worked out. So Michigan is showing us some different colors here, and you'll have to see it because that just means, well, we're gonna have a series, and we're gonna have more than 3 maps. We're gonna have 2 more at least.
Mm-hmm. Minimum of 2, so at least double what we've already seen today, which is great because we get to see these teams have a bit more flexibility, pull out different looks for them. Reinhardt, probably not going to be one we're going to see too much moving forward. So glad that we did get to see a bit of variety here on Kings Row. Very
Yeah.
nice to see. And with that, we will be taking a quick break, get our players in for the next match, get a drink of water. We'll come back with you in just a couple of minutes. Welcome back to week 4, match number 1. Southwestern Michigan and Huntington Esports tied up, actually, in a nice 1-1 series as we're getting ready to head into map number 3, our escort selection. And so far, we've seen a bit of variety. We saw a bit from both sides. We saw the Reinhardt comps, we've seen the Zarya comps, and Route 66, very interesting, very long, open sight lines. And I'm looking to see another new look here.
Well, exactly. You talk about these long open sightlines, but the one thing we pretty much have not seen so far is actual hit scan. It's been all. I mean, Reaper's the closest we've come to it, and maybe you can count Sojourn as it, but we haven't seen really Widowmakers, Ashes, Cassidy's. Like it's not been coming through. Not necessarily a problem, but on a map like this, you could exploit that a lot by actually playing them or coming in with something like a Pharah or an Echo. I'm saying like, well, if you're not going to play hit scan on range, we're just going to poke you from range with those things in the air and get an extra angle of attack. Would be really nice to see from either of these teams, and they have been swapping things around a little bit, but it's always up to them whether they actually want to go for it or not.
Maybe we'll see some substitutions heading into this map too. Bringing in a hit scan player, for example, would be nice. We saw Ash for a tiny bit on Busan downtown. And actually, no, it was in Mecha Base. We saw Ash for a little bit. We saw a Widowmaker for like 2 seconds on Kings Road defense on the 3rd point. I believe it was Huntington that brought it out.
Yeah.
So they're not very big sample sizes to really play off of here.
They haven't really been picks to like sort of start a map with. They haven't been like starting strategies. That's more, obviously what we're, thinking about in that situation. But looking at Route 66 now, we are going to see at least Prozac start on that Ashe on the defense. I'm a really big fan personally of having Ashe on defense here on Route 66. It's very nice to play from this big Earl's high ground, to throw dynamites down. It is obviously her cinematic and her lore map. Doesn't mean that she's necessarily, that's why she's good here. It just happens to be that case. But yeah, then you have the Mercy to damage boosted. I don't see anything wrong with it. You have Mercy just mostly worrying about the Sojourn and the Ashe, and then Ana looking at Trash Boat on the Sigma. Solid setup. We are going to see Michigan at least load in on the Pharah right now. I don't know if they're going to stick on it. And again, if you're not expecting hit scan, this might be a play, and you can hide behind the wall a little bit. But it might be a very quick back to spawn and swap.
Pharah first point, once you move around this first corner, can be a little iffy, just because there isn't as much natural cover as you'd like, and already the hit scan proving to be advantageous, especially with that damage pocket. Prozac finding that first elimination, and it just has eyes on the far. Like, look at that! Like, it's not something that you can really teach. It's something that you're practicing over and over again over time, and it might be Southwestern Michigan to take another look at their composition and switch some stuff up.
Yeah, they're already making some swaps here, and you can see that one kid, they swapped them around from the tank role to the DPS role. They just mistaken on that Junkrat the entire time. Sometimes that's just the case. The players are very comfortable in that one hero, and you can kind of make it work in any situation. We've seen semi-professional teams make that work, just like one-trick players almost. Not going to call that one kid a one-trick player just yet, but it is very curious to see that they've been on Junkrat for the last, 20 minutes roughly.
Junkrat is the glass cannon in a way. There's a lot of points that Junkrat can be very valuable, and a lot of others that it can be kind of iffy. I think Route 66 kind of iffy at that time, especially if you've fallen twice to Prozac with the hit scan and common counter to that hero.
We're going to see Pack 5 go over to Zarya now. They want to make abuse the fact that they can play the Zarya that's still in a fairly strong state in the meta. And because that 1 kid and 9 are both on fairly spammy and barrier-breaking heroes, they could potentially make a move to just break through the Sigma barrier, and then the Zarya is going to have more value. She doesn't have a shield, but she has those bubbles that will not be able to be broken as easily. And even when you break them, she's got a lot of charge, a lot of weapon charge. 9 does get taken out, might be able to rest that, but it is in a very precarious spot.
Carrot, it's possible you get it out, especially maybe if you consider popping Valkyrie, but just gonna let 9s respawn on their own accord. Rushers falling pretty early here. Just have this Kitsune rush when they return, and that might just be the thing Southwestern Michigan are looking for.
It's tricky to work with that rush when the enemies just sit on the high ground, though. They're trying to find a way to break through this, and so far their solution has been try and spam at it, maybe get a pick, but every single time they get a pick, it's been rest so far. Now the res is off cooldown. Now they need to find this elimination, and that 1 kid jumping in is trying to get it. Is not able to get it, but at least doesn't lose their life for it this time.
Yeah, and on the plus side, this cart has managed to rotate itself around the gas station. So you have a much better positioning, and Huntington are going to be forced to come down to try to contest, and that's when that Kitsune Rush is going to be valuable when these players are stuck in it and cannot move out. Specifically, Sigma has to use the Graphitic Flux really just to save himself in this scenario and try to get the Zarya down, has bubbles to cover the majority of that damage from the slam, but you're looking kind of lonely just by yourself within a bubble, and Huntington doing a great job on this defense of prioritizing this high ground and positioning.
It was really strange. I mean, a lot of players are still like adjusting to the fact that Kiriko exists. You could see that Nines on the Hanzo, they were like aiming at the enemy, but because of the movement speed they got from the Kitsune Rush, they weren't quite ready for that shift and how they had to aim differently. So you saw that crosshair be too far to the left, too far to the right because they just weren't ready. That's finally a great riptire though from that one kid. We could criticize them a little bit on how they used them, but that double kill is coming exactly what he needed, and they deny the rest too. That's a two-man advantage straight off the bat.
Third time's the charm, getting yourself in there with that riptire, opening it up. Clear. Huntington, however, not willing to give this one up without a fight. Bobbert on the point. Ginger finds their second of this engagement. Bob finds another one despite being booped off cart. This isn't just over for the defense yet. It's a 2v4. Right now, the Zarya anteed up and no healing able to come through from Michael. And they're able to hold on to this one strong as this time clock diminishes continuously over and over again. And just getting these players on the objective all you can. You got Michael and Ginger now. Nines. This one up. Long is maybe something to say about it, but it's looking rather grim. You still don't have that player advantage, the ones that are coming back fast, but Dragon Blade with the thing to turn around, getting up to the high ground, pressuring on the Ana, finds that elimination, but slept up. It's time for Trash Boat to stabilize with the remainder of their team on the low ground, finding a couple trade-offs of their own. Hack has to try to get the Sigma down. You have to get that Mercy, ideally, before as Miss Michael's doing their best to keep the rest of their players alive and surrounding this point. It's going to be a long... Now on one with the damage boost to back them up, and Mercy's once more traded out. Nines coming back, and Southwestern turn it around just in the nick of time.
They finally were able to get the supports out of the way. That's been their crux the entire time. The reses, the anti-nades, the nano boost, the Valkyries. It's been so much extra healing that's been coming their way from X-Michael and Doxic. Now Southwestern finally gets a chance at B, but they've been low. They lost a lot of time. 4 minutes total. That door is opening very slowly. They're just, get this card going, guys. Let's push it. Let's push it. Because they will only really have maybe 3 fights here on B if they're lucky. Maybe 4 if they're really lucky. But it's going to be a tricky one. And they did use a lot of ultimates to get through. But the sound barrier should be something to sustain them through at least that Gravitic Flux.
Yeah, those ultimates usually cancel each other out pretty well, but Prozac just hitting these headshots are huge. Gets another one. You don't even have the sound barrier now. You might not even want to invest the flux into this, considering you already got 2 eliminations. But one less thing to worry about in that specific department is Nines pressuring the Ashe player as much as they possibly can. But now on fire, doesn't need to burn to the ground on their own doing. But choosing this moment, choosing the Dragon Blade, knows that they're down. But once at least by the time to come back, Crusher's back with the sound barrier, barely landing. The players that were stuck in the flux and damage not able to go through, but again, Nines is stuck in the back lines. No one really wanting to pay attention to them as they know what a threat they truly are, and taking the focus away from the front line would be very tricky to deal with. Trash Boat stuck in a Gravitron Surge, pulled in, locked up, but the sleep will secure their life and be able to hold on. A minute remaining for Southwestern Michigan to push this point all the way through.
Yeah, you can just tell that Nines is sort of very alone when they go in there. They go in there on the Genji, and every time they get elimination, they usually lose their life for it, and then it just gets rezzed back up. So they either need something else to jump back in there, like you could go for a Winston, for instance, or a Diva in that situation, or just have a second DPS that goes with you. But they need something else to help you out there in that front line, and that's why they're switching over to the Ashe now, so they can just try and play a little bit more structured with their own back line and with their Zarya, rather than just diving in head first.
Nines gave it a shot and was like, yeah, nope, it instantly got taken out, and back to the Genji they go. I mean, ideally, you want to pressure them. If you know that you can't beat them in the 1v1, then you got to try a different approach to either outsmart them or take on with the different mechanics that you'll have at your possession. Nines able to do that very well. Already finds the one for the tactical visor from that one kid. These players able to escape away. Not just in time. Doxic to find the Ana player, but the resurrection from Michael there once again. Safe and sound have another player back in the fight, and Bob giving them that 6th man they'll truly need turn the tide back to their favor. Players unable to touch it. They're stuck up in the sky as well. Just like that, at this point, likely coming to a halt, and anti-health Genji that is on fire isn't going to be living for a very long period of time on an objective that is surrounded by your enemies. And it's just the same idea of throwing these bodies to the cart, hoping you can build an ult for something to happen. I mean, maybe Nines comes back into this with a Dragon Blade that's almost on top of it, and you even have the sound barrier close. If Crushers can build this up and continue to buy the time that they need, it could be turnable.
That true value of the Valkyrie coming out right there, plus the AoE healing from Crushers. They were pretty much unkillable. Not a Nanoblade, not the Blind Blade, just the Dragon Blade comes through. They get both the DPS. No res available right now, at least not possible to res any of these targets right now. Michael wants to stay safe. He's going to fly in, Valkyrie back up. That's just Doxic under fire. They need to get this Ana. They need to make sure that they get something out of this. The anti-nade is really good, though. That one kick goes down. Next, Michael will be traded. And with the sound barrier, they should be able to get this point.
That was a huge time buy from Southwestern. They played safe. They didn't try to go for eliminations they knew they couldn't get. They played around that cart like it was their life force, and truly, it is in the game of Overwatch. Got the correct win conditions up when they needed it, and here they are, moving on to the third objective, the minute 30.
Payload, definitely the most consistent healer in Overwatch. Can promise you that one. It's, don't worry about my quick play games. Just the players that are on this team right now, they actually do support each other. Let's talk a little bit about that Mercy dynamic, though, because we can constantly see Michael being able to rest, but that's because they're on defense. It's so much easier to rest someone when you're on defense, and you can just hide behind the wall. The attackers usually don't have that luxury, so Taro, he has to really rely on getting these proper damage boosts on and healing their team on the right moment. Going okay-ish, but yeah.
I mean, the tricky part here is you're running a Lucio Mercy composition, which doesn't have a lot of burst healing, or actually really none. And you're trying to get the pocket damage, but realistically, you can't. You need to be focusing on this Winston. He's already so low. Granted, you have the Dragon Blade and the Primal Rage. Keep him up and steady, but the headshot onto Nines. This Dragon Blade comes up with absolutely nothing this time around. Not going to be the hero that their team truly requires. Is Southwestern stuck in a bit of a pickle. They have time to come back through this, but Resurrection on a trash boat. Once again, defense able to make a good advantage of their positioning. Get this one on through. Andrews on the refresh. The Death Blossom wants to use it absolutely now. Comes up with 10 seconds remaining. So close. The line is in sight for Southwestern Michigan. Likely looking that they're not going to be able to get it there. Ginger comes up with a triple kill. Seal the deal. Self-destruct on the point. Just a little Tracer scooting around. Testing this objective with the last that they can, and not coming out. We've seen a lot of these fights turn around, though.
Yeah, the Lucio, they need to get the Lucio because Crushers had the sound barrier. If they get the res off on Crushers somehow, there could be a big play. Not going to happen this time. The mech is gone. That's the Mercy. Payload is actually going to halt here. It got a lot further than it looked like it was going to get, though, so they can be happy about it. It's very reminiscent of Huntington's push on King's Row, where it kept on being pushed into overtime, then they don't quite make it to the end. Let's see if that's actually going to be the same on the other side, though, where Huntington just pushes it through with like 4 minutes left on the clock. For now, we can just be happy in the consolidation that at least Michigan discovered that Winston exists. Because I do think that might actually be a very valuable hero to keep sort of switching back to every now and then when they need to. And whereas Sigma can be very annoying in sort of blocking off that healing, Mercy and Lucio are not really bothered by it that much. If they can get by that Sigma and just sort of ignore their existence in a lot of ways, then they can have a lot of value with that Winston, with their support line, with their DPS line. And then that tank is kind of left there holding their spheres in their hands, just floating around. The hyper spheres, not really that useful when they're not close to you and they just run past you. Pack 5 going to set up on the Reinhardt on the defense, though, and they're going to go in with that Bastion again. They might do a very close hold. I don't think they are, but they might. It's a possibility with this comp. But they need to make use of the high ground effectively.
High ground is going to be their best friend, but I mean, who really would sit up there? Maybe the Baptiste, maybe Nines, but
it's
about Pack 5.
Well, it's not about sitting there and poking there. Like, you set up there so you can jump on them without having to use movement abilities to get close. So you can even stall the card a little bit from up there. So you force the enemy team to get close to you before you engage. And that's when you can just drop down on them and use the high ground advantage that way, because it provides you cover. Now they're just setting up in the open, and that might just be their detriment. Already a lot of damage coming out there from that Sojourn from Ginger.
Sojourn able to burn a couple things down, but Prozac didn't have the deflect and underestimated the DPS that Bastion can provide in that scenario. And Ginger still is up here, firing away, wants to move along the back, has the power slide to get themselves out, and managed to put themselves back on the low ground. And it's going to be interesting. It's going to be a battle of, I think, honestly, the Sojourn versus the Bastion. Who is really going to be able to find that poke damage and the burst better?
The Genji has to find a way to get in closer, and with all of this burst damage that they have on the other side, it's going to be very tricky without a deflect. You can see it in and immediately out again. Darrow going a little bit low, but she's able to regen burst back up and get some healing from Crushers. As there is the D.Va remech. Finally, they're going to be able to fight again.
Themselves back in the fight, and that's the tricky part with D.Va. Once you're out of mech and you don't either fall immediately or get that mech back, you're stuck in a different position you can't really work with. But Soundbearer actually coming on through and desperately needed by several players of Southwestern Michigan. As per usual in typical Bastion fashion. Well, that actually rhymes. That's nice. I'm gonna have to use that more often.
Definitely do. As we do see now the true power of Michigan coming to life. It's not necessarily their mechanical team play. It's their throwing the enemy team for a loop. It's the constant adaptability with the comps and throwing out some new fangled hero that the enemy team has never seen before in scrims. And the Bastion is definitely that culprit in this sense, as Prozac dashes through both supports, gets the kill, gets shattered and charged, doesn't even die from that. Oh, this fight is going all the wrong ways for Southwestern, but at least the Reiner's still on the cart, never mind. Oh.
Never mind. It was a very sad, like, oh, never mind.
Never mind.
Never
I thought we were gonna get some heroic Reinhardt play, but they already used their shatter and their charge, so it was kind of over anyways. Now we're gonna see ultimates for Ginger and Trash Mode be there. They can definitely zone out a couple with those, but Pack 5 is just gonna speed into them with that Lucio, and that speed boost difference has been a problem for Huntington for a while now.
Yeah, but honestly, they're making do with what they can, and Ginger, okay. That's how you play Sojourn, ladies and gentlemen. You point your gun, and you hit secondary fire, and you do a lot of damage, and you win.
You press Q, and you just automatically win. If you get less than 2 kills, then I don't know what to tell you. At that point, you don't need to hit headshots. Like it's not getting nerfed, by the way, people. Don't worry about it. You can still play overpowered Sojourn until at least the 4th of December. So use it. Go play DPS. If you're a good Sojourn player, you can have a good time. But for now, Michigan not switching over to the Sojourn themselves. They have 9s on the Soldier now. A little bit more range, a little bit more, cover that they can take. Keep dashing around, darting around with those legs the entire time. And it's going to be that kid that's going to be looking for a Death Blossom.
I mean, they're going to look for it, but you have to work around the defense matrix of Trash Boats, either when they're in a position that they're not able to get back to the rest of their team, or ideally they're out of mech, is when you're going to get the most value. You don't exactly need to wait for those moments, and it's going to be how much value that one kid really is able to find. If you can even get one and scoot away with your life, that will be plenty. But the self-destruct, that was a grave mistake, and Urana has the sleep dart available. Doxic saving 3 players about there if that sleep dart had not hit.
It was the right moment. It's the right choice to go for because the D.Va's out of mech. That's what you're waiting for. But unfortunately, indeed, there was a sleep dart there. Good shatter, though.
You shattered only under the D.Va and decides to pin in and, Reinhardt moment. Reinhardt moment is what we're going to call that. Classic combo with the Earth Shatter, unable to come up as much value as they were searching for. They began that play. Finds the Tac Visor, though. Knows that they don't have a shield to block it, but, it still takes a lot more damage than they were able to do at that moment in time. And that's why you're going to need to commit to the drug this. You need to commit that. And even the nano onto Michael, whether that was intentional or not, it is existing and still managed to take away Crushers.
I like this move that Southwestern is doing at the moment. They're sending a lot of things on flanks and on like behind the enemy team and going around them. And it's exactly how they're constantly distracted and like, oh, we have to look at this, we have to look at this, we have to look at this. The carts barely move. They burnt out a lot of time. Yeah, they're not necessarily winning this fight, but they're constantly stalling. They're constantly being a nuisance towards Huntington at the moment. And it just keeps on being a very good moment here. Good cleanup from Huntington. Nonetheless, they are going to cap the point here. I don't think another contest is going to come in. But it's been a good defense so far. But this is where they're going to be truly tested, because 2 minutes 40, it's not a whole lot of time, but it's definitely enough time for these ultimates that they have and ultimates that they can build up to absolutely decimate a defense. And last time, that overclock, that would just got them an entire objective.
And overclock is going to be huge. Ginger came up with 4 last time. Can they do it again? They have the Ant Matrix, but it's going to sit on the high ground instead. Says, I don't need the duplicated damage. I can do all of it on my own. Like, on the other hand, making really good use out of it. Immortality fields, little questionable at that point in time. You know what? You'll have it up before that next engagement begins, ideally, and it's on a roll. Huntington still have both the overclock and the self-destruct in their exposure if they decide to use it, but losing their Sojourn, they might be a bit more on the back foot.
Oh, they made some space with the tire. Didn't quite get anybody, but at least it made a lot of Huntington back off, which gives them a little bit more time to get out of spawn on the side of Michigan. So that was a good play. But now Huntington goes in with the self-destruct, has the nano boost ready, the overclock ready. This could be everything to finish it off. They get the remake kill in the 9s. This fight might just be over before it even starts.
I think that was invisible Sombra too. They weren't even showing themselves, just like, oh, squished, instantly dead. It's
oh no.
Poor feeling, and you're not able to get on the cart. The graphitic flux from Pack 5 immobilized every single player.
We
it's
call
just a
that.
Huntington W.
Yeah, we call it the double Dutch in the playbooks. You can see the Dutch hero double duking themselves. Unfortunately, played double agents. It's just it's the problem. But hey, you know, we get to play the game from the Sojourn. I mean, I was joking about it a little bit about Sojourn being super strong, but that was also just a really strong play from Ginger. Still taking the time, lining up the shots, hitting them properly, got a lot of space from their team to do it with. So it was still definitely worthy of being called a very good play, and Ginger has been hitting shots all night. So still impressive to do. And now it's a 2-1. Route 66 has been won here by Huntington. And as we're going into push the next game mode, that's going to be chaos. Like I genuinely am very curious about what's going to go there, because it's everything is new about this for both these teams. Because it's also, you know, it's a very, very unfamiliar map for everybody. We're going to have some swaps happening. Pack 5 is going to go back to DPS, and that one kid back to tank. So a lot of swaps going on. And you know what? They've been swapping a lot. Not just the players, but in heroes.
I mean, and that's one thing on its own. It's one thing to have players come in from off the bench. That's great. But also having these players swap roles. If you're swapping from tank to DPS, sure, there might be some similar mechanics, but it's a lot different styles in terms of shot calling, how that is playing out. Your positioning matters a lot different. There's a very huge differences between roles, and seeing these players' flexibilities and keeping the same 5 people in can be key in terms of your communications. However, are they able to step up to the roles that they've done, finding success with various variations of the two?
Yeah. And what I will also say is, I mean, I talked a little bit about, like, yeah, they swap heroes a lot. I think Overwatch 2 in its current state is so promoting of hero swapping because you keep that 30% ult charge.
Yep.
So a lot of the time you'll have these DPS players like, oh no, but I'm on 60% ult charge. Do I swap or do I not swap? And now the choice is a bit easier because you keep that 30% guaranteed. And I think Michigan, even if it's not really working out for them all the time, the fact that they're swapping heroes so much is really working out for them, because it keeps throwing enemies at the back foot. You're still trying to counter, you're trying to adapt, you're trying to do something different, and you don't lose ultimates all the time. Because that's usually been that whole thing. It's like, oh, now we're going to lose the next 4 fights because we didn't have ultimates, so we don't have that rotation going on. And I think that realization that has set in with Michigan, or at least it seems to have set in with Michigan, might be something that more teams want to take note of when a patch is favorable to diversity. Just being able to swap to either counters or soft counters, or things that work better for you or your team in that situation or that part of the map. Maps like Eichenwald have always been very iconic of that, where you start on a composition maybe with a Pharah, and with a Reinhardt, and then you swap over to something more divey like a Winston, a Genji, and then on the third point you go back to a Reinhardt, and now you can actually do that without having to really worry about, oh, but then all our ult rotations, so it's such a problem. Like, you give up a little bit, but not enough to really warrant saying we're never going to swap. But yeah, we're going to a new map type. It's push. It's Esperanza, which I usually have dubbed myself as Shishperanza, because what's really going on this map? It's chaos, it's carnage, it's everything that we love about push, about the high speed and the flanks, but it also can be very frustrating to push through, especially because this little corridor they're going to go through right now. This is going to be one of the most pivotal flanks in the entirety of Overwatch that everyone is looking. It's not even a flank anymore. At this point, it's just a second main that you're going through. As the teams meet in the middle, they're going to be on almost mirror compositions. Main difference, Taro on the Moira.
I'm going to be curious, because Moira, I often view her as she does a lot of healing, but seemingly pointless damage at times. Well, Baptiste has a bit more utility to his kit in a way, and having an advantage, you're not really bound by resources either with Baptiste. You're not worried about managing your healing versus damage cooldowns, but difficult finding early, not pulling early, because Nines is able to get that high ground positioning and hold themselves in that spot.
Hopefully going to be seeing a little bit more coming out of Michigan here. Looks like they've been able to win the fight out of this mostly. Zarya, if that one kid staying alive is usually the indicator of that. Zarya wins, and that means your team wins. But that early pick on X-Michael was really what cemented that. They're going to have Ginger immediately swap over to the Sojourn of their own, just so they can actually fight against that. Yeah, we're gonna see whether or not this makes a big difference in their play. We saw Ginger have a very strong Sojourn, and this is what I talked about in the ult charts as well. Ginger not losing a whole lot making that swap.
Nope, not at all. You get basically the same amount that you had before. Maybe you lose 10 or 20 percentage points, which isn't too bad. Especially with Sojourn, you make that up pretty darn quickly. Having that mirror opportunity, but this robot really hasn't left the considered neutral round, I guess you could say. At this point, basically it's two mains, and you're trying to figure out where the best positioning is for your team to find that opening, that window of opportunity, and it's gonna be the Genji finding the way into the backline, forcing these players apart for Nines to land the shots that we very well know that they can.
Nice on Sojourn. Where has it been all evening? It could have been such a strong pick the entire time, but at least it's coming out now when they most needed it. It's definitely the hero they deserve at this point in time. Overclock was a very strong ultimate to finish that off with, and now they're coming in with still 4 ultimates left. Huntington, though, coming in with the full 5. If they're gonna defend this point before the checkpoint, that's what they're gonna have to be using, those ultimates. So let's see who uses which ult first, because Taro's Coalescence could be super aggressive to start something off with.
And that's the nice thing about that ultimate, is that it gets up pretty quickly. But you're going to want to wait till the amplification goes down, just so that you have that fade utility to get out. The sound barrier from Crushers was actually utilized earlier than you would have liked, and Reddy at this point is so close to getting those forward spawns, and ideally Huntington don't want to let that happen. They need to keep playing this robot as far as they can as they begin to walk back already, despite having not taken down all of these players.
As that fight is eventually won here by Huntington, they do take the checkpoint. No, they barely didn't take it. That's unfortunate, because they don't get forward spawns that way. Very nice timing on the recontest in that situation, because otherwise, you come to the situation where the forward spawn is activated, and then it's going to become harder and harder to keep fighting that sort of neutral fight in the middle of the map. Now that the gravitons are still online for both teams, this is where that is going to come in, and especially with Taro sort of being able to beam into that, both healing and damage, that could be the difference maker.
And neither of these teams really have any support ultimates to lean on either. I mean, you have Taro's Coalescence, but usually Graviton Surge is able to eat through that damage if you have the correct focus fire in that department. Doxic's able to move up. Neither of these Zarya's actually ended up using them there, which might hurt them a little later on. Building up these ultimates could be huge, but in the meantime, you're gonna have to be on the back foot when you recontest, as Huntington inevitably will be receiving the forward spawns.
Huntington winning 2 fights in a row there, having to use a lot of ultimates for it, so now it's going to be up to Michigan to use their ult bank advantage in order to start pushing that bot back a little bit and regain their lead. It's not a whole lot of effort. Again, they had to win 2 fights in order to get that back. It's going to potentially be the overclock difference. Nice blade to start it off with, though.
Yeah, a huge blade. You ended up using Graviton Surge there, and so did Huntington. So Pack 5 finding that value is integral for this team, especially in the later fights that will ensue. Now, Push is all about winning those consecutive engagements, and now, with so many resources off the table, your possibility of coming out on top is much more balanced.
Especially there that Coalescence from Taro came in very late, basically almost only to kill off the Reaper, and then Reaper still gets out. Prozac actually living throughout that on like a sliver of HP. Kind of feels like that old maybe not have been necessary, but the overclocks keep being held by both these Sojourns. They need to start pressing these Q buttons. There we go. There's Nines. Gotta start pushing this back. Get some eliminations here.
Yep. Nine sees that Ginger got an elimination of their own and wants to try to turn that around and do the same, but Overclock not again. If you're not able to land the shots, then Overclock doesn't find the value that you're searching for, and Huntington truly taking advantage of these forward spawns and returning immediately to that midpoint and already regaining them once more.
I'd still rather have them use the ultimate and not get anything than at least trying to get it. The
Bastion?
The swap over to from Nines to the Bastion again as well. I mean, I've liked seeing it. It's just something that a team, if you're not ready for it, or if it just happens every now and then randomly, you might not be ready to set it up. Nice Bastion positioning as well. That high ground is the Reaper underneath them, though, but at least that means Prozac's been flushed out earlier than they may have wanted to with a Death Blossom.
I mean, yeah, exactly. And like, not only do they have Death Blossom, they have so many other tools at their disposal. They don't want to work with it. But that's 4 down. The Moira, the only one survivor. Not for much longer. A team kill comes through, and this robot's getting it so far up here, and with only the Death Blossom, Huntington just need one more fight.
Ginger still has the overclock. Like that's what's been the most impressive thing to me is like Ginger has just been able to find this Sojourn value without having to use the overclock. Maybe they're trying to prove a point. I don't know what's going on. Maybe they just want to use it to finish off the map, but they need to press the button at some point. I keep saying it, just to get more kill potential that way. Bastion in that room is going to get taken out, and this looks like a road to victory here for Huntington.
It's not over just yet. You can see the spawn door right there. They can come in quickly, but you're close to a Graviton Surge. That's probably your best bet. You have the sound barrier to come back in to re-engage with, but Ginger on a 20-player kill streak, like, that's anything to how much value the Sojourn has provided for their roster. It's insane, absolutely insane, and that's what you're waiting for, the Graviton Surge to come back in, but 3 minutes remaining to get this robot nearly over twice the distance you've already achieved. It's a tall ask.
They are almost instantly though potentially getting that checkpoint. Like they need to win one fight or like one skirmish depending on how well Huntington regroups in order to get to that checkpoint and just push the bot like the barrier just on it, because it's like a little nudge, little nudgy nudge, and they'll get the checkpoint there. But there is that defensive ultimate of Doxic. She's gonna be ready with that, and that's gonna be hard to push through.
Not only does Doxic have that, you have the Graviton Surge as well. Doxic, just using this one earlier, they're going to have their own grab to worry about and use it freely to try to re-engage with this fight. They know how important it is to let this robot stay in the midpoint, and because they still have this forward spawns, even if they're losing players, they know they'll still be up. Parrot, with the Coalescence as well, filling up their team to the best of their ability. Pack 5 now, with the Riptire comes up with nothing. I guess it does get Michael low enough to take them out in the end. However, you're going to need a bit more than that in order to continue forwards. Prozac built yet another Death Blossom up. Such a costly one to build. Look at that. And that one, kid, maybe be able to take them down and turn this out, but you're walking nearly twice the distance to return to the battle, and soft reset is really all Huntington needs here.
The Moira meter balance coming out from Taro there, going for the little bit of the right click to heal the meter back up. Look how low that meter is. You really need to use the orbs and try and get that meter filled back up ASAP, because otherwise this Zarya is going to have very little support, especially against an amplification matrix.
You can't even peek against that to try to get the extra damage you need to get that heal bar up. And that's the thing with Moira. It's so much about resource management. If you don't have it, then what else can you do? You don't have the sustain.
Yeah.
I mean, keep yourselves in the fight.
And I understand like the desire to swap. Like you don't always want to be playing the Baptiste. Sometimes you're just not feeling it. The immortality fields might not be landing, or you might not be hitting the shots or the right clicks. Like there's always sort of an argument where Baptiste just doesn't work for certain players. But I like the Moira adaptation. Like it does give them the ability to sort of sustain or pressure in certain situations, and it has been able to do so. And they're close to another Coalescence.
You're gonna get that one up, and you even have the photon barrier to play around. In the meantime, you're moving past it at this point because Nines is that full charge beam, double beam, pink and blue alongside each other. Laser these players down. Prozac, they managed to find one, but will just inevitably be staggering themselves out.
I like that they're getting better at just like sort of knowing or guessing where Prozac's gonna be. Yep. They've been sort of repeating those same locations, and at some point there's not enough flanks anymore. Like at some point you just know where the Reaper's gonna be, or you can check them really quickly. So getting caught out a little bit more. Nine's now on the Tracer. Not a pick we see come through a whole lot because of how vulnerable she is, even with the lack of CC. But we see sometimes they work with Great Revolution. And what a graviton!
What a graviton! What a sound barrier! Keep them all up. Crash Boat has one of their own. Nose Crushers has the sound barrier. They'll want to try to use it early. 14 seconds remaining. Even if you just burn down this clock a bit more, taking it to that overtime fight specifically, knowing that you only need the one to hit this home for your team. Match point for Huntington here as they move up. Act 5 trades one out. No damage players for either side at the moment. Still holding onto this graviton. That will be unleashed as Prozac seals the deal with the Death Blossom, and Huntington are taking this one home.
Huntington with the 3-1. They were thrown a little bit for a loop here and there. There were some creative picks and effective swaps coming out from Michigan. In the end, it is definitely the prowess of players like Prozac on this Reaper, like Ginger on the Sojourn, but even just the solidifying tank and support line. This Trash Boat, very hard to take down, very solid supports, amazing anti-nades that come out from Doxic and Michael that has just been playing on every single support they've been playing in a very capable, if not outstanding capacity.
Indeed. I mean, the support's one of the few differences that were in that composition, and we can see how important that truly was in this series in general. Having that sustained, the consistency in your backline is what will develop your front line and give them the opportunities to work. Enabling is the name of the game, and Huntington did just that, taking away the victory. Congratulations to them.
Yeah, Huntington, once again, they came in as the favorite. They did prove that they eventually were also meant to be the favorite. I mean, we said it before. Their win record supports it. The way they played against the teams they both played against supported it. But it's always good to see it come out. But I don't know if I would say I didn't expect Michigan to do as well. I think it always sounds a little bit mean. But they definitely they might have performed a little bit better than some might have expected of them in terms of the way that the win records have gone. And maybe they are starting to find their own. They're starting to gel a little bit better as a team. They're starting to find these adaptations. They're making these quick swaps. They're making these quick decisions. And the more you're confident in those, the more you're able to pull those off correctly. And then the mechanics also start catching up a little bit. All the start to become a very dangerous team to deal with. And some teams that just do what they want to do, like whatever they want, whenever they want, those are the teams that eventually turn out to be the scariest or the hardest to play against. And that's how you can sneak in a fair few sort of, I would say cheesy wins, but you do sneak in a couple of wins that way. So we might still see them in the postseason in capacity because of this style of play.
Call it cheese, but whatever works, It might be a little different than what we're used to traditionally seeing, but because it's different, it throws other teams off their game. And even for Michigan, they broke a 7-map loss streak today. So it wasn't truly nothing that they came up with. They've shown signs of improvement and potential that they can push themselves through to the postseason. And Huntington themselves pushing them up to a 4-2 record. A good place to be standing, and hopefully putting them in the postseason themselves, hope.
Yeah, I mean, I really hope that we see them there. I mean, hope we see every team there. It's obviously not always possible, but it's how we do. That being said, though, that was it for game number 1 this evening. There's obviously still a couple of games to come. Next up will be ISU Black versus the Bradley Braves from the Challengers Great Lakes Division. There might be, that's at least what we got planned for tonight. And after that, even 11 p.m. EST, you're going to have GFU Esports Varsity versus the Montana 10 in the Emergence Pacific Frontier Division. So there's still a lot more Overwatch to be played tonight, Overwatch 2 to be specific. So don't go anywhere and stay tuned for more of these wonderful games in the NECC Overwatch divisions.